meeting today. This is our fourth meeting of the year and our final official meeting. We do have a field trip coming up in May. And to bring us greetings, I'll let Justin introduce his head of school this morning.
Welcome. If you haven't had breakfast, make sure you get some. We want to finish that all up so we don't have to lug it all back downstairs and throw away. But I'm going to introduce Mackenzie Cohen, our head of school, to say a few words.
Yeah, thanks Justin. Just welcome to Collegiate. I just want to thank you all for being here. We're happy to host you all here. Make sure you grab breakfast. I want to embarrass and shout out Nathaniel and Justin and all of you all, really. What you guys do with technology in your schools is what keeps all of us able to do what the rest of us do. And I was just talking with a coworker of mine on the leadership team saying that, like, if tech is running well, it's easy to forget that you all are here, right? And it's probably one of the most servant roles that's in a school because it's all behind the scenes and it's what makes everything else happen. So please accept my gratitude for what each of you are doing in your school, and especially you guys for what you're doing here at Collegiate. So if it's all right, John, I'd like to open the meeting with prayer, and then I'm going to immediately step out of the meeting. But if you'll join me in prayer here, we'll just give thanks to the Lord. So Lord, I just thank you for each of these individuals and their commitment to their schools and to technology, Lord, and just the provisions that you've given each of the schools in the MAIS network, Lord, that we can fellowship together, gather together, learn from each other, Lord, that we are all providing for our students and our scholars the best possible education, that we have the resources to provide, Lord. And I just am thankful for each individual and their knowledge and the spiritual gifts you've gifted them so that they can continue to make a difference for the schools and their community that they serve. Lord, I ask you to be present in this meeting and let it be fruitful and do more to glorify your kingdom, Lord. I ask all these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen?
Amen. Thank you.
Have a great meeting.
Thank you for hosting us today, too. Okay, that's great. Some logistics real quick. Breakfast obviously there. Restrooms are down the hallway, and the men's room is down the hallway and to the right a little bit. So if you need to use the facilities while we're here, that'll be great. Justin, thank you again for having us in. It's been a while since we've been here. I guess Lynn was here the last time we were here, which has been a while. So how long has that been? I mean,
2008.
Yeah.
Whenever the school started, I was here. I came the very
we
first
were
year.
here. Those of you who've been around, we came. Lynn hosted us back then. So we're glad to be returning again under Justin's leadership here. Once again, the SSID you need to access is CSM event. And the password is MAIS-TEC 2019. So the agenda's online, and hopefully you access that. Real quick, let me just jump down. I'm going to jump just for a second here. Let's jump down, especially if you've not done this before or you're new to coming to our meetings, and we'll go around and do introductions as well. But the link to sign in for today is in the first paragraph under attendance. You click spreadsheet there. Sarah's got all that lined up for us today, so you just go through and you'll put your initials in the left-hand column that you are present. It's very important that we do that officially today because it is our elections, and we need to make sure that we know who's here for our determining a quorum and all that kind of stuff. Also, if you are new, please add your information at the bottom, highlight it in yellow, highlight yellow anyone that needs to be removed. If there are changes in your information, highlight that in green. You can make the information, but highlight it, and then Lynn will take care of all of that on the back side after the meeting's over. Because after this meeting, and at the end of the year, well, technically probably after our field trip meeting, we will be purging the list. We'll talk about that. That's one of our agenda items. We voted to do that, and it's time that we kind of did that. We've been carrying some of our folks for a while now, so we need to go ahead and do that, and then we'll start afresh. And we're going to make an effort next year too to re-invite some people. We're going to do some formal kinds of invitations next year to their heads of schools. We'll see where people are missing and all that, and we'll try to do that and try to get some people to return who've not been in a while. Once again, I'm John Seamy. I'm the president. Justin is the vice president. Justin Whitford, our host today. Sarah Casey is our secretary. Lena Collins is our treasurer. I still left it since that's the way she was brought in as the website director, is Lynn Williams from Briarcrest. But of course, with the change of the bylaws, we changed that to a communications committee, and Lynn is, of course, the chair of that. But to get us through this year, I left that all up there. So I want to welcome you. Let's start in the back. We'll start with our speaker for the day, Melissa Smith. And so just tell us who you are, what you do, and we'll just go around the room.
So I'm Melissa Smith. I'm at Presbyterian Day School, and I'm the Chief Information Officer there.
Very good. Wanda?
Wanda Carroll, Director of Technology, Lakeview Schools.
Okay, very good. We got North Point in the house today.
Julie, Technology Coordinator at North Point. And I'm Susan Waters, Assistant Director of Technology.
Okay, great.
Brian Beretta, the Director of Technology and Innovation at Bud Home School.
Nathaniel Warren, the Technology Specialist here at the Collegiate School Memphis.
Very good. Another host for us today.
Arthur Rosario, Assistant Director of Technology, MUS, and I just do whatever he tells me.
Don't we all?
He does it so well, though, too. So.
Raina Vernon, Technology Instructor at MUS as well.
Justin Woodford, Technology Director here at the Collegiate School Memphis.
Beth Downey, Technology Integration Specialist at St. Louis Catholic School.
Very good.
Okay, Lena Collins, Technology Instructor and Coordinator at Sacred Heart School.
Lynn Williams, Director of Instructional Technology and Accreditation at Briarcrest Christian School.
And Chief Videographer today.
I'm Scott Holcomb. I'm the Ed Tech Imagineer at Crosstown High, and I still do what Johnson.
Right. We're glad to have Scott come back with us today. You missed, I think, a meeting or so. Y'all had a lot going on. Sarah?
I'm Sarah Casey. I'm the Director of Library Services at St. Agnes St. Dominic.
Jane Manus, Reading Academy, Technology and Integration Specialist.
Angie Gould, St. Agnes Academy, St. Dominic School, Director of Digital Academic Services.
Excellent. Thank you all for coming today. It's been a great year, I think, and I'm glad that we got a good showing today, and we've got a great program and some good stuff to talk about, and then great presentation at the end. In trying to plan for the year, as we all do, those of us that you've done, if you've been in this role, you try to plan a meaningful, productive meeting. And I was looking back and I thought, of course, we had Wanda present earlier, and I thought, well, who else among us had presented at TTC? And I saw that great session that Melissa did, and I said, that sounds like a really cool topic. And so Melissa's going to be our presenter today. We'll introduce her toward the end of the meeting. You saw the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda for today? Okay, seeing none, it'll stand as presented there. So the minutes are listed. There's a link to get to the minutes. So they are presented from the secretary. Are there any additions or corrections to our February minutes? And if you remember, that is when we adjusted and amended our bylaws. So that should all be noted in there. Thank you for Lynn for taking over in Sarah's place in February. So we've got some good minutes there. Any corrections or additions to the minutes? Okay, so they are submitted, and so I'll entertain a motion to approve those. Angie moves, Lynn seconds. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, so the minutes will stand as presented. Lena, so always a robust treasurer's report. So Lena's got all that here. I'll let her present all of that to you.
Previous balance was $1,283.34. Bodon paid their dues after the last meeting, and so our current balance is $1,313.34.
And those are the member schools who have paid. So unless we get an additional check before the close of the school year, which, once again, they'd be paying for 18-19 and have to pay again in 19-20, we'll do a purging of the member roster at that point. So, that's a good representation. I see a couple of holes missing there. People who've been long-term members. One school I know has a founding member at their school, and they're not there. So I don't know what's going on with. I'm particularly talking about CDHS, and so I've extended. I don't know. They've not been to a meeting this year. There is a new lady there. I think I may have said that to you earlier, but she didn't come to the February meeting, and she obviously didn't come today. So I'll try to reach back out to her and just see.
I emailed Patty.
Yeah.
And told her we'd missed her, and she said Things have just been crazy. She couldn't get away.
Yeah.
But she would like to.
Well, we'll see. Maybe she can come back again and start next year. So if you see a sister or brother school that's not there that you think should be there and you're wondering where they are and why they haven't been coming, please reach out to them and try to get them back on our roster for next year, back on our roll. Okay, so let's move on down. Lena, I'll save the discussion about the credit card till I have that as an agenda item. So just one more thing, we decided to go with a self created invoice and a receipt. So Lena created those and they're there on the agenda there for you, so you've got that as well. Once again, if you didn't sign in, please do so on the spreadsheet. There's all of that information again. All right, so let's move on into our old business. We talked about that, and so we did a good job getting people to get their dues paid this year, thanks to us beating the bushes and Lena, several reminders and everything. And I think that invoice and receipt may have helped up there with that process, so that's good. Since we're talking about dues, Lena has been researching at the request of the membership. Someone brought that up, I think, at the November meeting. So she's been researching that for a while, and she has a little bit to report to us today. So, Lena?
Looking at trying to, I'll stand so y'all can see me. Looking at trying to have a business account where you can have credit cards. There's a lot of options out there. And it's like, it doesn't look like it's that big. It's like maybe 2.9% fee, and then maybe an additional 30 or 50 cents. And then you get to the small print, and it says to set it up for our business. There's anywhere from $50 to $200 in fees to set it up. And so then I thought, maybe we could just kind of do like a personal PayPal account as MAIS TEC is the name. And then I thought, we might get in trouble with that because it's not really a personal account. I happen to and if anybody knows anything about this, Lynn and I would be very grateful, but just by chance, I came across Google Pay. And I know I have used it to pay for some things, and it's free. There's no fees, there's no charges, it's just the straight. And so I contacted Lynn and said, do we have this? Do we have this feature? Do we have this option? She goes, I'll check. She goes, I activated it. So it has been activated, and now we're looking into the actual process. So if anybody has any experience with Google Pay, your insight would be greatly appreciated.
But you looked at, there were because you've told me some other things you'd looked at. And there's fees and so what do we do with the fees? Do we pass them on to the member school?
Well, and that's what we had decided,
right?
Is that we would pass the fees on. When you're only looking at, 3% plus, at most 50 cents, we're looking at only a couple of dollars. It's not that big of a deal, but it was when you looked at those setup charges is when it really just kind of escalated. And when we're not looking at that many payments a year, I didn't think that $50 to $200 was worth it to set up those types of accounts. But that was like with Square and with PayPal and
About Venmo.
I didn't really look at Venmo. I can, but
This sounds like a good option.
but Google Pay, it just, like I said, I just happened to come across it by accident, and their thing was no fees, no charges, no setup costs. I was like, we've got a Google account, so let's see.
Send like an invoice with it too.
And you can send
so
and
they
request
don't
money.
have to make a big account, or they think that they just have to kind of.
And it's just by email. It's how if you have an email address, and then you can associate whatever payment it is that you want with that. And so that was is that you can request money from somebody. So if somebody's wanting to pay with a credit card, we can send an email requesting that money. So maybe that'll help with some of your budgeting at your schools and things. So
have you used that, Brandon? Have you used
I know I
Google?
paid things that way.
right. It's
And you can also incorporate Venmo as well as Google Pay. There's nothing to it, and it's also completely free.
okay.
And it's what the millennials do
Right.
to pay for stuff. So if we want to attract millennials,
There's a reason not to offer both. You
Right.
just say you can pay us this way or this way or this way.
Venmo's public though, right? Like, there's no way to like hide a payment.
It
Or
has
is there?
a really nice
You
social
can.
aspect.
You
to
can.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I mean, I appreciate Lena's efforts. I mean, she's obviously spent a lot of time on it, and she, like I said, she'd gone back and forth with me back right when we first started this, and then she gave me an update this week about it. So that was good that you and Lynn got together. I mean, any objection to letting Lena and Lynn just kind of continue this process so that we would be ready to go potentially for our new membership year in August? I mean, I don't know that it requires a vote, but I'm seeing lots of nodding heads. I mean, I don't know how many of us would be willing to do it, but even if one school wants to do it, I mean, I think, you know, the idea was that it was proposed that, well, I mean, I could just, you know, whip my credit card out now and give you the stuff, and my dues will be paid for my school. So, and I think a lot of us as heads of our department have a credit card, so, you know, we would have that ability to do that. So I think it's a great addition, and it would be a great service for our membership to have that, you know, as an option if a school wanted to do it that way. So seeing no objections, then we'll let Lena and Lynn continue to kind of set that up. And, you know, if you want a guinea pig to try it out, I mean, I would certainly volunteer, because I have a card from Technology in the US. I would be certainly willing to do that, to be your first person if you want to try it out for next year, for 1920 dues for next year. So we can do that in the summer or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Venmo's part of PayPal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they not
They
too
all
long
get sucked
ago.
into each other.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Lena. That's really good. I appreciate that. She took that on as treasurer, so I appreciate her efforts. That was good. Okay, any other questions about that? Okay, very good. So we had a new committee that was formed this year as a result of us with the uncertainty of Innovate Ed. You know, we kind of put it on hiatus. We didn't have a huge attendance last year. We had issues with getting people to present and just, you know, the whole 9 yards. So while we were tackling the bylaws this year, we just kind of said, let's just put that on hold. We had lots of suggestions about when. So I said, you know what, why don't we just have a committee of our group members talk about what is it that we want to do with PD. I mean, this group, you know, that's part of what we do. We present to our teachers, and Innovate Ed has been a great effort that we've done for the last number of years. And prior to that, you know, Jane was so big in leading the hot stuff, and that went on for many years before Innovate Ed. And that's part of our bylaws, is that we will help provide PD and we'll help educate people in terms of educational technology. So I asked some key people to serve on a committee. I'll read you the committee's group, the committee names there. We had Angie Gould was the chair, Jane Manus, Cindy Brock, and Amy Smythe from over at Woodland. You know, Amy's still relatively new. She comes to a few meetings. She's unfortunately had something in the last couple and she hasn't been able to come. But Amy's one that she wants to get more involved in MAIS TEC. And so I said, well, you know, this is a good way for you to start, is to help serve on a committee. So I will let Angie, and then Justin also as president-elect or vice president at the time that the committee was formed, Justin served on that committee as well. So I'll let them talk about what they saw. So Angie, is this a link to get to the to the document?
Yes.
Let's see if I can pull it up. I could not earlier, but I think she made it.
now.
Yeah, here we go. So we'll see if we can, come on, here we go. Just cancel that. Let's make that bigger. So Angie, tell us what y'all came up with.
So as John said, we were looking for a way to kind of improve upon the Innovate Ed conference, and how do we either increase attendance, or how do we help, you know, train our educators in our community. And we discussed possibly moving to a webinar series rather than having a conference where we actually have to run it, host it, manage attendees, whatever. We already do so much of this at our own meetings, and we were talking about the fact that Melissa had this big presentation coming up, and possibly kind of using our own meetings in each other when we're presenting ideas to each other as our initial webinars, and we could just kind of harness what we have within this room. And then obviously open it up to even student groups, possibly making some presentations, or any other faculty members. If it's at, you know, whoever's hosting the meeting, you could open it up to your faculty members if they had something, exciting to share. You can use our Facebook page as a way to kind of publish an event to promote it, and then obviously to stream the live event during the webinar. There's a lot of potential moving parts that we could discuss. I know it came up, how would we kind of track attendance and issue PD certificates for those that attended the webinar, because I know for some individuals this is an important part of professional development. And we talked about possibly doing just a Google form that would be like a link that would be embedded at the end of the presentation, that if you were the presenter, at some point at the end of your presentation, you would have to post a link where they would, click on it, access, to have a certificate automatically sent to them. So that was kind of a way to combat that issue. Kind of running through my notes here. We said try to keep them under 30 minutes. Would make it more accessible for people to even access like during the day. So if we did it live during one of our meetings, not everybody would be able to get away and do it and actually participate, but maybe if it was a short spurt of time, they could slip out and have someone cover for that 30-minute period. Or obviously we would have these archived as well, so people wanted to access them later. I know that I subscribe to a lot of different things. They send it out called PD in your PJs, and you can kind of register for the event, but then watch it whenever you have time. So we could offer that type of situation as well. Talked about possibly doing maybe just 4 starting out, and if it ends up being easier than we expected, we could always add more to the plate, but kind of doing them quarterly, and then if it takes off, we can offer more. But we've also talked a lot about how we as a group can help reach more of our community, and this might be a way for us to do that, kind of make a name for ourselves within our community and not just be this individualized group that we share ideas within here, but then they stay in here and they don't necessarily trickle out. So this might be a way for us to kind of get our name out there and have a social media presence and get followers and people that look to us for ideas instead of us maybe looking elsewhere. So
tell us about the book chat up here at the top of the notes. You said maybe
that was
about June or July doing a book.
Amy had that idea. I think she talked about professional summer reading, that a lot of us at our schools, this is kind of what it was coming from, that a lot of us have to do professional summer reading, and coming up with a book or a series or something like that we would read together, and then have a couple of different sessions where we can all get, maybe if it's just a Twitter chat or something, or if it's a live chat together, or we discuss whatever the PD piece is throughout the summer, where people have a little bit more time and might be able to sign on, and it might bring exposure, and then you've got some followers and you've got some people that have bought in, and then when the school year starts and things get a little bit busier, they might actually be looking for the next event. So it's kind of a way to hook people in the summer.
Okay, good. So I wasn't able to attend the meeting, so afterwards, Justin and I just talked, and I said, hey, give me an update from the meeting. And so Justin, you want to talk about the 2 things that you added at the bottom there. Just, we don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah, today's kind of going to be a demo. We're using a GoPro, and we have a little mic that kind of goes with that, so we're going to see how that goes.
Yeah.
But we may need to purchase or something, and especially even for our live feeds and stuff, so Lynn's arm doesn't get tired.
Like a tripod or something.
But something where we can live stream. And I've kind of looked a little bit more into that. You need an encoder, or something, like a swivel would work.
iPad and the swivel and a little mic. She wears around, the presenter wears around it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, have y'all seen those before? That's a really cool thing. I like it a lot. It's great for even in the classroom if teachers wanted to use it, if they wanted to broadcast something or just record a lesson or whatever. So we had talked about those things, and then of course and
then the other, I guess, concern would be we just need to make sure that if we are using presenters from our meetings, that we seek permission from them, because if they're on the conference circuit, they may not want a digital copy of their presentation going out because they want to hit the circuit. Wanda, your name came up on that. We were like, well, we don't know if she wants it out there. We don't know because
out there.
Yeah. So
I've done it so many times. I've even live screencast it.
Yeah. So,
Good.
so it's just, I think it's just something that we would want to be sure that
Yeah.
we do, and just let the presenter know, would you be fine with us?
And
creating a
Melissa
digital archive
agreed
and
to
offering it?
be filmed in today.
For good side, though.
So one of the interesting things, Angie mentioned is, as us becoming more leaders in this effort in our community. I mean, we are a great group. There's excellent people in here. We're all leaders in our schools. We all do great job with our own community, and collectively we come together in this organization. And so we might as well, try to, for lack of a better word, exert ourselves and just make sure people know who we are and get our stuff out there. And as a result of doing this, these would then become archived on our Facebook page, and we could share them among our faculty and among whomever, and maybe we might get our name out there, and people might start recognizing us, and it might be more of an effort, and our people may want to attend the meetings more because of what we do, our PD. And it's more ongoing throughout the year rather than that one night initiative that we did for the Innovate Ed, which may have outlived its time. I don't know. Maybe at some point that may swing back around and we may revive that. I mean, we just don't know. But this is what this committee came up with, and I for one like it. I think it's a great idea, and I think they really gave it a lot of thought in their planning and in their stuff that they put down. Melissa.
I don't think it would be able to be used for like credit or hours or whatever, but I watch a lot, and I'm sure everybody else does watch other events that people are sharing. And when I come across one, it'd be nice to have like a place for us to, just put recommendations of other things to watch. I mean, we might not be able to credit the people, but
Kind of put our stamp on it.
yeah, to say this
approved.
approved by.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, to add a link to that to our library so that, it would be kind of vetted by somebody, one of our members who had participated and watched a webinar on their own. Maybe with a little tagline about what it really was, because obviously you would have watched it. So, this is really good for networking, or this is really good for Google Classroom, or this is really good for Apple products, or whatever. So, yeah, that's a great idea. That's a really good idea. Let's say maybe just add that to the bottom of the notes there. So, any other questions for this committee? I mean, I think this is certainly worth us trying. Maybe next year we may be in the same boat in the spring next year, and maybe that committee will be revived and we'll have to go back to square one and try something else. I mean, who knows how it'll work, but we won't know until we give it a try. And I appreciate Justin coming up with his GoPro and the microphone and everything for us to give it a try. And if we see if that works, or if we want to try out a swivel. Does anybody have a swivel in their school that we could maybe try for one of our sessions? Nobody has one?
I had 200.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll put it out to the list and just see if anybody else, and maybe we can try that at our next event or our first time we do it, just to see if we like that before we invest in the money and buy it. Because we certainly have some money in our treasury that we could buy something, and then that could just kind of move from year to year with the president, so that it just kind of stays from year to year with and moves along with our group. So, any other questions for that committee?
On the book, is there going to be like a book recommendation? Like if we decide to do that this summer, like how will we discuss the titles? I have a good book that we're reading at our school right now that's called The Unselfie, and it's talking about the kids just showing the social media and the being brought up with the iPads and they're kind of going grassroots again with the parents and just
made the recommendation. I think you did too.
I would recommend that book.
And so
I thought it was
y'all
really
are reading
good.
it now?
We are
so
reading it now.
So you would have already read it. So, I mean, I hate to volunteer you, but would you lead that this summer? And I think that's a great suggestion.
Really
But I will participate in that. I mean, but we obviously have to have somebody lead the club. So, would you?
I was going to say, Sarah has
that'd
like
be
the
great.
book club, book chat queen.
You want to
over
take that
here.
on?
She'll probably get the author here to talk to us too. She's,
I think it's a great idea.
In fact, I can even order at a half price through our library vendor for everyone a copy of the book if you guys want to do that. I mean, I don't know if you want it digitally or not, but I can order everybody a print copy.
We can Venmo or Google Pay.
And it's available as an audio book.
Okay.
I was just gonna ask.
Even better for the summer.
So why don't we, okay, so.
Why don't you let me?
Yep, you coordinate that, and you obviously can work with Melissa, since she will have already done it and read it, and then maybe come up with a couple of dates, one in June, maybe one in July, and we can either do a Twitter chat, or, I mean, does anybody not work in the summer?
One thing.
Lena does not.
But I will make, I mean, that's,
One thing we did in book studies at Lakeland was we set up a flip grid for the
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's a great idea.
And then we just told people, after you read a chapter, just go on and put your reflection.
Put your reflection.
And so then, but then the group got
Yeah.
together and actually discussed.
I mean, maybe we could do lunch a couple of days in the summer. I mean, I think that would be a great idea. I mean, those of us who are in town, obviously, you wouldn't have to come, or if you're busy, that's fine. We obviously don't have everybody come to our meeting, so if we got 5 or 6 schools, I mean, I think that's probably a good summer effort. So I like it. I think it's a good suggestion, and I think that's a great idea to add that. So kudos to Amy. As you said, Amy, let's give her credit for putting that suggestion down. So we'll do that, and we'll let Sarah kind of lead that effort, and she can work with Melissa, since Melissa made the suggestion, and will have already completed the book. I'm sure by the time we actually kind of get started on that, so that's a great idea. I don't know that we need to take any kind of official vote or anything on this. It is a proposal from a committee, and it's something that I think we'll just try out. I mean, if anybody has any objections, we could move it to the floor for a vote, but otherwise I think that we'll just take this suggestion from the PD committee, and we'll give it a try. Obviously, we're going to try it today with Melissa's presentation, and we'll see how that goes. And then maybe early in the late summer or early next year, we can decide whether or not we want to invest and buy a camera and a tripod or a swivel or whatever it is we're going to do. So let's give the PD committee a round of applause. That's a great. They took on a big task there, so I appreciate that. I appreciate it. And the next item on the agenda is also, Angie's the chair of that. We haven't done much with that, but it's on there. I need to probably just take it off.
Okay, yeah, take it off, because here's the problem. So
This is the consortium that we have been talking about. Let me put the agenda back up.
I just don't think we're big enough to get
I agree.
what we need. So in most of my research and my conversations, we'd be better off piggybacking with other states, groups. So I don't know if any of you have been getting the North Carolina discounts. They're a huge group, and
can we add that though to the discussion? Let's put a link to that or whatever.
You just sent something out about it, I think. Was it you? Maybe not you.
Maybe.
But they're big enough to actually get them, and they're happy to share. So I talked to the girl last year that was doing it. She said it's a nightmare. I absolutely hate it because there's so many moving parts, but it is great, and she's gotten a lot of positive feedback from surrounding school communities and stuff that are taking advantage of this. So
What is that called?
So we'll
It's
officially retire that from the
the
agenda. I just kind of
NCAIS.
kept it on there all year. And we've been so busy with the bylaws discussion and everything, and of course in our tour at Collierville, that we didn't really have time to discuss it. But I did want to at least kind of put a bow on that today and kind of wrap that one up. So that's good, and that's, this has been going on for over a year, and I mean, I think we have talked a little bit about it before, and I do remember that discussion, and that we're not really big enough to have our own consortium, but we could tag on to somebody else's. So we'll put that link in there, and of course that will be on this agenda that'll be preserved, forever, and then we just won't add that on a future meeting. I won't be doing the agenda next year. There'll be a different president, but hopefully the incoming president will take that off the agenda.
I did want to note, SAIS just sent their consortium prices out this past week.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys got that email. Whoever's in charge of SAIS at your school should have gotten that email.
Okay, we'll maybe try to add that one as well, those 2 links on there. All right, that's pretty much concludes our old business. Anything else before we move into our new business for the day? Okay, let's go down to the new business section. So Melissa had sent me a message and asked that I put on the agenda today a discussion about teacher technology management expectations and tools. Hang on, let's move that down. And tools for possible solutions. So Melissa, you want to elaborate on that?
So we use remote desktop, which has not been the greatest since what, late 90s? To watch the boys on the Macs. And I mean, you have to be a magician and a scientist to be able to get it to work correctly. And Apple's not making it run any better. And so my department will, we'll kind of get on and watch the boys here and there throughout the day. And we bought a couple of years ago licenses for several different teachers to use it also, and also aftercare. But they're not asked by the administration to follow through with using remote desktop. We've trained them, or we've shown them a couple of times about using dual screens and having, your class just on remote desktop and having all of the screens showing, but of course they're gonna say, show my screen, and be all, goofy because they're kids. And, but it does die down after a while, and it's a great way to watch them. So I just get frustrated because it's not really required of the teachers, and when I don't know if I should be live streaming this part of it. But when the teachers get frustrated because the kids are off task, it's a part of the management of the classroom, and there's several teachers out in the world that actually manage the computers, and I've been told it's, I'm not, I need to work with the kids, I don't need to babysit the screens. Well, behind the screens are the kids, I don't know. So I just got a little frustrated, and we looked into some other tools like Relay in Classroom was one that looked really good, and Danielle sings praises of GoGuardian, which is a little pricey. And then you've got things like Nearpod and to help facilitate your lessons. But I just wanted to know, what else? How do you all require your teachers of monitoring the students? Where does that come from? Or is it you all?
So Raina's been looking at that for us.
I've been trying to figure that too. I'm just sorry, I'm trying to know the ones you already mentioned because they weren't on my radar. GoGuardian, and what was the other one? And I'll tell you the ones I've looked at.
Relay Classroom, but it's through Lightspeed.
Lightspeed, right.
So, and you're at with Bobby, right? Yeah. So, and that's actually very pricey also, but it's fantastic what I've seen. It gives, and so with GoGuardian, you set up your classroom time, so your class period, and it archives all the stuff that the kids have been doing, and then it sends you an email so that you can work with the students when you're teaching the lesson, but they're still held accountable. So that was really good.
It's a record. I haven't seen that functionality. We've been playing with Veronix Insight. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I've had that for a few months. And
Veronix has been a while for a while. And this is their latest
it's dual
product.
platform, and it's unlimited teacher accounts.
ONICS Veronix.
Right. So it's unlimited teachers, which is kind of nice. It's priced by the machine.
Yeah, ours.
And so I like that part. I mean, for me, functionally, it's definitely done what I want to do. It doesn't do that piece that you just said about the report. That's really interesting to me. But it does have, I don't know if remote desktop lets you do this, right? You can say they can only be on this website, or you can have an allow and a block list. This dynamic, you can update it as needed. So that adds another piece of control.
GoGuardian Teacher does that.
Right.
They call them scenes.
I'm about to try out Dino. I was going to set that up next week. Is anyone?
They're very expensive.
Yeah. I think Veronix is the cheapest that I've found, but I haven't looked at those.
So you're paying all this money for this awesome tool that is very much needed in our schools. Then who uses it?
Right.
And are they forced to use it? Is it fun to use it? I just don't want to sink the money in there and then it not being used, which is what, remote desktop's so cheap, but, it's not. So I just
There's
spend money.
also brand new Apple, they're calling Apple Classroom for the laptop.
Yeah, they've added that. It's
That's
supposed to come
coming
out in beta
out in
this summer.
beta.
But you have to have a specific, we've got 4-year-old machines. So,
Yeah.
you have to have, same with
It's
the
the
classroom
latest
when it came
OS,
out
correct.
with the iPads. We don't use Apple School IDs with the students. So we were, we just haven't.
Well, I will say before, for Onyx, one thing that's interesting for them is that there's kind of a setup fee, but that you have an initial lifetime license. So we were pricing like 22 computers in one computer lab, and it was going to be, I think, around $300 or $400 for that one-time perpetual license. And then there's like a maintenance fee that's $5 per machine. So for us, just looking at that one lab, that's like $100 and something a year. So that felt, I think it really depends, I think, on how many devices you're going to have, though,
I also think this is kind of a twofold, I'm going to claim a twofold problem, I guess, is that part of it is managing their web traffic, it sounds like, and then the other part is just on task with lesson delivery. So I think there's different tools that work better for, depending on, whichever one is more important to you. And I do think some of those are best managed on the teacher end, and some of those are best managed from, IT admin standpoint. So we use Classroom and we use a lot of these together. So Classroom, our teachers manage that and do the initial setup, but our teachers do that, and that's for just basic lesson delivery, keeping students on task throughout the day. Now we use, that's just Apple Classroom, and that's right now just on our iPads, but we are hoping to implement it with all of our devices because we're half and half. So, but with Relay, that is really allowing you to manage your web traffic. You can isolate it to where they can only go to specific sites. It monitors everything they search and
other
allows, you can open up YouTube finally safely because you can filter exactly where they can go. So, and it gives you the reports. You can have them emailed directly to the parent, to the student, to the teacher, wherever. But that's more of just when there's a problem, we go look at that. Or, none of us really have time during the day to sit and track all that. But if a teacher says, hey, so-and-so, check this, or a parent comes to our attention, and says, hey, I want to know what so-and-so was doing last night between this. We have their report, we have it. And things are flagged, so you can set parameters to get notified if somebody's looking up this or spending too much time on this, and you can set all that up. So some of it is just kind of plug and play, like let it play out, and you look at it when and if you need to. But in terms of day-to-day, lesson delivery, Classroom's great. But even just using things like Nearpod, those individual teacher tools, and let the teacher pick almost how are you best going to manage your own students, because if they're not comfortable with it, then what's the point? So we've kind of adapted our protocol at the teacher level. So what do you need? What's going to help you utilize technology in a way that's going to benefit your students and help them learn? Because if it becomes too much of a distraction, or if the teacher can't do his or her job because it becomes a distraction, then it's not a tool anymore. It's something that's hurting you.
But you can't. And you can't take it away though.
Right.
Because
you can't.
It has to be. So are your admins requesting that the teachers use tools like Nearpod to keep them on? Like, is that coming from them or your department?
It's still probably coming more from us, but that's the culture shift that we're trying to get our administrators on board so that they can help enforce it, because we can suggest things all day long, as you probably all do, but at the end of the day, who's standing over them? I'm not policing whether or not they use them.
Yeah, it goes back to classroom management.
Right. So
no matter how much we put into a classroom, there's all kinds of technology. We've spent 20, 30 years buying and putting the newest, latest, greatest, and then you go back to the classroom and the basic center of the classroom isn't, and then it makes me think as all of us as teachers, what about that teaching style? What about that lesson is making half the students do something else because they're just not into the lesson? I'm a huge fan of Lightspeed Relay. We use it. I was just showing Chris Terra, our executive director, that this is what they're looking at. And we noticed that there were sites that were new, so I blocked those sites, I think that's, yeah,
totally. You get some of it done, but then.
Yeah, and if they don't have access, exactly, what are they searching? Exactly.
Well, and I'm interested. It's interesting that y'all aren't using the classroom delivery piece of it, because that's a really neat tool where you can monitor If the kids can reply that they're having difficulty, like they can sneakily, raise their hand for help. You can see where they are on the completion of their tasks. So it's got that whole Nearpod, what's that, a Pear Deck kind of feel that goes inside of there. We don't have, we're all small departments, so even to be able to go through and look at all the reports in there, I almost think it needs to have a shift where we've done so many years of bringing it into the classroom of these are how to deliver a lesson, but now I wonder if we need to focus on, we've got all these great tools, how do you manage it? Because classroom management is a course in college.
So I'm curious, I'm like so fascinated by this because I taught in a classroom for 10 years in a one-to-one environment and begged for classroom management software all the time. So I'm like totally shocked that teachers don't want to use it or don't like it. Do you think the problem is with the Apple, like the remote desktop? Like I know it gets a lot of bad reviews. Like is it clunky? Is it just hard to navigate? Or
Sure.
They just haven't updated it because it's
You're not looking at it
in the
that
life
moment,
product.
you
I
don't
mean, you're not
have
going
any
to do
There's
it.
no history of data,
Right.
it's just
But
looking
does it
real
give
time.
you, I mean, does it give you controls and like freezing everyone's screen, like that kind of
Yes.
thing? I mean, do they like that part? I mean, to me, that's one of the things I really love. is
I
being
use
able
it
to-
all the time. I use Apple Classroom with all my classes that come in.
Right.
And I can freeze them, I can mute them, I can send them out, I can
Right.
lock them in
You
an
can
app.
send out things to their desk.
But they can also override it by hard resetting their devices. So
Brian.
So, I'll tell you, we yanked it out of the classroom at one point because what we saw was that teachers were so busy monitoring that they weren't spending the time doing classroom management, or it was interfering with teaching time. We looked at Dino, and we actually got away from Dino Monitor because Dino Monitor was just that. It was remote desktop. You could see all the students' laptops. And that's what the teachers were focused on, not on the collaborative side. And so make the lesson collaborative, and you're not, start looking at technology that no longer tethers the teacher to the front of the classroom, that they're able to walk around the room. Now they can do classroom management without having to look at the back of a screen. And all of a sudden, it moves from being just the voice in the front of the classroom, and I can hide behind this, is that the teacher is working with the students. And if the students are collaborative and they're working together, they're less likely to be off task, and they will police themselves. When it comes to we're working together, you need to get to work, it does actually work. I've seen it work with 5th and 6th graders. I know it can. So I'm wondering because we look at it from our side, where we manage a network, and I can say, okay, well, I can pull it up and say, okay, this kid was doing all of this during class. Yeah, he's off task. We need to do something about it. But the teachers were one who, I'm not going to walk into a classroom and say, here's how you need to do it, because that's not my classroom. My classroom, they're not going to be off task because I keep them moving. I keep them going, and when they do start to stray, I get onto them. It's like, everyone else is working. Why are you sitting there on your laptop? What's going on? Because I know you're not.
So much of, and I don't know middle and high school, but in elementary we have small groups, teacher conferencing, or small group with the teacher where the kids have other assignments and collaborative and all of that. It's just when she needs to conference over writing or small group and the rest of the kids are around, that's when they get a little squirrely. And they're not naughty. I mean, they're just making, collage pictures of their heads on squirrels or something. But it's not naughty. I just didn't know how much is required of the teachers.
See, I agree. I think putting that onus of responsibility on the teachers, that management side, is adding to an already heavy workload that they have to manage a classroom, and then manage a piece of software, and also figure out a good lesson to keep every one of these kids involved. Okay, so I'll manage the network side of it, and if there's an issue, come to me, and we'll take care of it from there. If you need help with the technology in the classroom, I'll do what I can to help you, but that's your classroom.
So
And I
but
guess
you
the-
have a record happening behind the scenes. Which program are you using?
We have Meraki as for our wireless.
But so you could, so if a teacher says, this kid, every time I turn my back for 2 seconds, he's clicking somewhere and then it's gone and I don't have time to sit and babysit this one kid, you could pull up all the history of what that particular kid did. Because I think that's really useful. I think most schools don't have that capability.
I mean, at school, so our focus is when we filter for protection, not policing. So I don't want a third grader going across something that mom's not ready to discuss with him yet, because he will. Trust me, he'll try. And so we don't filter everything, and I don't sit there and monitor it because I don't have time to monitor it. So if there's an issue, I can set up flags in Meraki to notify me if a student tries to go to something it shouldn't be at. Or if the teacher brings it up to me, I will, discuss with.
Because what happens is it's like what she described. They're not naughty. They're not looking at porn or something. It's not something that's going to get flagged. It's like you said. They love bringing up. They're pulling up. It may not even be. Yeah, well, I was going to say it may not even be internet though. It may not be internet. It may be they pulled up their little camera and they're taking funny pictures of themselves. It may be, they may be on a.
And see, some of that to me that goes back to classroom management about
Right.
the teacher. But I can see Brian's point too, and Melissa brought this up too. The different levels of the teachers. I mean, their skill level is, you've got to manage the classroom itself and the assignment and the instruction, and then they may have to manage a piece of software that they're not comfortable managing. So I can see that. See, right, like Randa, your situation is you're in that lab all day. That's your room, and you have people come in there and whatever. But so is this a situation where they go and they're in this collaborative space or whatever by themselves? There's not like Cindy or somebody's not in there with them, or
There's a grown-up somewhere.
right. I mean, I don't mean the kids by
Yeah.
themselves, but just the teacher, and not like another support person or whatever.
Yes, single teacher.
I guess I'm
So-
going to advocate from the teacher end because it costs. When you say put on, I feel like you're saying, well, the teacher and the classroom management, but it's impossible, especially if I'm making them collaborate and all their screens are not all facing me because they're in pods. It is impossible for me to make sure they're all on task. It just is.
Well, that's
and so those tools for me,
anyway.
it doesn't mean that you need to be. It doesn't mean you need to be staring at all the screens here all the time. Just those little pieces of hey, this is the only internet site they should be on right now. I'm going to click a button, and I don't have to worry about them jumping on other things. Like that, to me, makes it easier for the teacher to have good classroom management. Yeah.
We have web zones, and if the teacher wants them only to go to a certain site, that is the only thing they can get to. They can try, but it's going to come up with a block screen.
Brian, you have
every
another
time they do
comment?
it.
So with our kids, full disclosure, being Bodine, there are 10 kids in a classroom, and the teacher many times is working one-on-one with a kid sitting outside the classroom. And so the kids, we do a lot of working with the children when it comes to self-advocacy, and they really have to do a lot of focus, and so there's a lot of time that the kids are on their own when it comes to working on various assignments and drills and skills. And so there's time they could potentially be off task. That's going to happen. We use, for our classroom tool, we use Microsoft Teams for everything. And the teacher has everything listed in Teams that the kid's supposed to be on. And here's your assignment, shares it out through Teams, and the kids go and do their assignment. And if they're off task and don't complete the assignment, the teacher is immediately aware, well, you didn't do the assignment, what were you doing? And don't lie to me, because I'll go to Mr. Beretta and he'll tell me exactly what you were doing. So the kids know that they can be monitored. They know no one's sitting there watching them, but that stuff can be pulled up, and that threat is many times often enough just to, the fear of getting caught is a great deterrent.
So Melissa, I don't know that we
Right.
came up with any consensus, but at least I think it was a good discussion for sure. And some other resources up there that maybe people did not know about. And so, I think this is probably a to be continued because I know Raina's still actively looking. So, we'll maybe address this again in another time and just see if anybody else has given any thought, if Melissa's settled on a top product, if we've settled on a product, if Relay has surfaced as a good option or whatever, or if it's just strictly a classroom management kind of philosophy kind of thing. Because it's also just a difference in philosophies as well. And I don't know that we're going to come to a 100% consensus on that as well. But it's a good, healthy discussion and good to get the products out there so that we at least are aware of what people are using. And you have a resource. So you might want to put out there like who uses those different things. So if you're using a specific product, put a school out there so that maybe if you're looking at that, you'll have a place to go to for somebody to call and ask about. Okay? Other questions for Melissa? Right? Melissa, are you good on that?
I'll read the notes.
There's no consensus. But
Sounds great.
okay, let's move on to our social committee. That was chaired by Whitney Miller. I think, was it Melissa? Kim Moon. Kim, I thought was on Melissa. Kim was on the committee too. So we've had a great social the last few years. So give us our info, please.
We have decided to go to Salsa because Salsa does not charge us a room rental fee upstairs, and it'll be from 5 to 7. And I've told them to about 15 people because we had about 10, 12 last year. So put it on your calendar: margaritas, fajitas,
Appetizers.
Yeah.
Is that over by Oak Hall? Is
Yeah,
that the
it's the only, that's the only location in town.
The Roman
Poplar and
Regalia.
Ridgeway, right there at Regalia, yep. And we'll send reminders out and stuff and all that, but I think that's great. They did a great job. Whitney's chaired this now for a couple of years, and if you came last year, we had a really good time. It was great food at Las Delicias. I mean, we had a great time. Seems like there's a Mexican theme going on here, so we'll continue that on. If you've never been to Salsa, Salsa has great food. I mean, to me, it's one of the best Mexican restaurants in town. I love it. So we'll be there, and so we appreciate it. Let's give the social committee a round of applause. Appreciate them. Before we do the election, let's just quickly zip down the rest of the agenda, because after the election, then I want to be able to take a quick little break and turn it over to Melissa. So we'll bypass the election for 1 second. So there's our next meeting dates. Scott has confirmed that we are good to go for May the 3rd. We haven't set a time yet. I'll work with him on that. I'm guessing about the same time, but I want to get with him about their morning routine and make sure they're in and all their beginning of the day stuff is done before we invade that space. I have not made any effort to do anything else in the building, but I probably will with his help because they've been there a full year now and they've got established relationships with other places in the Crosstown Concourse. So we'll do that again. If you came last year, what a great follow-up for us to go see this almost to the day 1 year later. And this time, fully built out, not under construction, so that'll be good. We'll see the space as it is being used. And with kids in it and real teaching going on. And then they can maybe we can have a few teachers that if they have a little bit of time, they can maybe tell us how their year has been and how their projects are going and all of that. And what's his name? The head guy.
Chris Terrell.
Yeah, Chris Terrell. He was not with us last time. And so maybe he can take a few minutes and kind of tell us about his first year doing that. I don't know if the new principal will be there yet, but I don't think so. She doesn't start till summer, correct?
Yeah, till July, but she
they,
can certainly be on
They
Sunday.
do have a new principal. I don't know if you knew that. The other lady left in the December, and so they've just hired. It was just made public this week. It is, okay. I'm glad she's telling us that. They do have a new principal at Crosstown, so we look forward to that. Please mark your calendar. Feel free to bring other people from your school. It's not just limited to the tech department. We had a really good showing the last time. I think we had like 40 people there. So we'll do that on May the 3rd. That's not an official meeting. Today is our last official meeting of the year. It's just one of our field trips that we said we would try to do periodically throughout the year. Our first meeting of 2019-20 will be at Hutchinson. Thank you, Whitney, for hosting us then. That's Friday, September the 6th. There are the conferences that are going to take place over the summer. One of them is actually next week in Dallas. Atlas, is anybody going to Atlas this year? Okay, so a couple of you are. It's definitely in my budget for next year. For a couple of us from MUS to go, we've never been, so we look forward to joining that event next year. I hear really good things about it. I joined that tech listserv that they have, and that is excellent. If you're not on that, it was on I think the February agenda, the link, or maybe the November one, but the link was there to get on that listserv. Wanda's put up a Nashville Google Summit. ISTE is in Philadelphia. Anybody going to ISTE? So TITA is having a Tennessee reception again, so you'll get more information about that coming up. And then y'all, we've got the TITA Summer Institute is in Collierville again this year. It was here in 2016, so we'll be back again in 2019 at the new Collierville High. And Friday is the Teacher Day. Wanda, you want to say anything about that?
I'd love to have people present, whether it's you or your teachers, anybody who's got stuff to share. I'm especially looking for stuff about tech with the littles, because we always have a lot of elementary teachers come, and it tends to be very heavy on the older kids using tech. So if you have any specialists with the little kid stuff, I'd love to see people submit to present.
Maybe some of your robotic stuff.
The event's free.
Your maker stuff at Hutchinson, who've got some really good stuff going on with little ones. Come on.
We will give certificates. The certificates are going to be a little different this year. They're not just going to be here, you were here. There's going to be a little reflection that people have to do at the end of each session, and those reflections are going to be printed on their certificate. So when they turn in their certificate, it shows what sessions they went to and what their thoughts were.
So that's a little more meat for your admins who need that kind of stuff for your credits and things like that. So that's
And
good.
it filled up last year. There was, you couldn't, after a certain date, you couldn't go. So you got
Summer Institute.
Yes.
Yeah, y'all. This thing it does fill up, and there's free breakfast and free lunch. I mean, it's a great day. Really good door prizes. I mean, I'm telling you, if you're not interested in the rest of the week, which is really for people like us, though it's not for teachers. The Tuesday through Thursday is an admin tech event. That's what the TITA Summer Institute has always been. It's for tech director type people. But the Friday is Teacher Day, so I really encourage you to come. And it's free. I mean, you know, if your teachers are looking for something in the summer, or if you need them to go to something in the summer, it's right here in our area. And the good thing is it's not just our local presenters. There'll be people from all across the state and some national people who will still be there, that will be staying over from the other conference. They just stay over and present on Friday as well. So it's a great event. And then there's an ed camp going on the very next day at Elmore Park Middle out in Bartlett. So Wanda added that one as well. There were the committees up there. Let's just see what else is down here before we go back to the election. There's all of our social media links. So let's go back up to the elections. So our election nominating committee is chaired after our bylaws were revised by our immediate past president, Jessica Lancaster. Our committee was made up of also Jane Manis and Raina Burdett. So this was sent out back way early on. We got that done by the time limit of our bylaws. So Jessica, thank you for a good job of putting that slate of officers together, you and the committee. So our slate is going to be for next year. We'll take nominations from the floor if necessary. Justin Whitford is running for the office of president. I am running for the office of president-elect. I know that seems kind of strange, but Justin and I had kind of already talked about this last summer. I said, Justin, come on, run for, and so when he did, I said, then you'll be president next year, hopefully. And so then when we restructured the bylaws, people were saying, well, do you just want to run for president-elect and be a 2-year president? I said, well, no. I said, let's wait, and I'll come in. Since Justin was already going to do this and already had it in his mind to be president, I'll just come back in and do the presidency the next year. So I'm totally fine with that. We discussed all this, and so it's not a slight or anything. I mean, I totally agreed to this outline. Sarah and Lena both have agreed to stay on again. Thank you both so much. I do appreciate it. I know the group appreciates it. Sarah's running for secretary again, and Lena is running for treasurer again. So since it comes from a committee, it doesn't need a second. So that is the slate. So the way we'll run the elections is we'll just do it officially by, like Robert's Rule of Order says you're supposed to do it. So I'll move the office of president. Justin Whitford is running for president, so I'll open up the floor for nominations. Anybody else want to submit a nomination for president? Any other nominations for president? Okay. Seeing done, I'll entertain a motion to close the nominations for president. Jane Manus moves. Anybody second? Lynn seconds. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, so we have one candidate for president. So my name is in a nomination for president-elect. I'll open the floor for nominations for president-elect. Any others want to come from the floor to run for president-elect? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the nominations. Jessica moves. Raina seconds. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Great, so I'm the only candidate for president-elect. Sarah's nomination is, his name is put in nomination for secretary. Anybody? So the floor is open for nominations for secretary. Anybody would like to run for the office of secretary? Anybody running for the office of secretary? I would entertain a motion to close the nominations for secretary. Whitney so moves. Justin seconds. All those in favor of closing the motions for secretary say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Great. Okay. Lena's name is put in nomination for treasurer. Anybody? The floor is open for nominations for the office of treasurer. Anybody good with money and wants to have the bank accounts put in your name and deal with the credit cards and all that? Okay. I would entertain a motion then to close the nominations for treasurer. Brian so moves. Nathaniel seconds. All those in favor of closing the nominations for treasurer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, so we have an unopposed slate of officers. So I would entertain a motion from the floor to elect this slate by acclamation. Melissa moves and Angie seconds. Any discussion on electing the nominations by acclamation? Okay, so the way our elections go, even though it is by acclamation, there can only be one vote per school for the elections, according to our bylaws.
And we do have some represented digitally here right now.
Okay.
Just to let you know.
Okay.
3.
Very good. Hello, everybody who's here. You tell us who's on.
Cindy Brock, Scott Young, and Randy Moore.
Very good. Good to see you all. Okay, so one vote per school. If you need to caucus and decide if you're going to vote for that slate, do so quickly. Okay, so all those in favor of this slate of officers signify by saying aye. One vote per school.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so congratulations to this slate of officers. Justin will be our president next year. I will be the president-elect. That's a new office for us, so we will no longer have the office of vice president in MAIS TEC. And if you'll remember, our Mission Impossible self-destructing clause in our bylaws will disappear after today because we no longer need that anymore. That was just to get us through the rest of this year. And so the bylaws will be, we voted to do that, and so I'll just move that. Lynn will put the new copy of the bylaws up without that phrase in there. So Sarah continues as secretary, and Lena continues on as treasurer. Thank you all. Thank you for a great year. I cannot thank you enough for your support of me. We tackled a pretty big topic this year doing the bylaws, and I appreciate your support with that. That seemed like that consumed us all school year, and it did, just about. But I think it was necessary. You know, we've kind of beat that horse enough, but I think that is a highlight of this year, and streamlining our meetings a little bit to maybe just 4 times a year rather than trying to do 7 or 8. I think that is going to help us out in the long run as well. Doesn't mean we can't have 7 or 8, but you know, we've kind of streamlined to quarterly kind of meetings, and I think that's going to serve us well. So I do appreciate that. And I just want to take a moment of personal privilege and thank my people who worked with me this year. So I do want to thank Lynn. We'll start out. She's not an officer, but Lynn does a lot for us. So let's thank Lynn for her work. We couldn't have the great website that we do, and she redid the website this year and all that. So Lynn, thank you for that. You did a great job, and she's agreed to kind of continue doing that on. You know, you kind of get in this role, especially like Sarah and Lena, and it's just, you know, it's harder to change the bank account than it is to, you know, just kind of continue doing it. Sarah, thank you for being a great secretary. I really appreciate that. Lena, thank you for your work as treasurer. And Justin, great vice president. I appreciate that. So I thank you all. So at this point, I would entertain a nomination to adjourn the meeting before we have Melissa set up. Jane moves, Melissa seconds. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, so why don't we take a quick break, have some more refreshments, we'll let Melissa get set up, and then we'll have Melissa's presentation of her topic. Let's read
And
the
I'm going to
title
stop
again.
the Facebook
It
video,
is
but then I'll
Student
start
Created
live again in
Holograms,
just a few
a
minutes
STEAM
whenever she starts.
build. Thank you all.